everybody, it's Christina from Card Making Magic. This is the card that I'm going to make, and these are the dies that I've used. I've used Matting Basics A and B to create the base. The flower is created from the Aster flower topper. The swirly part along here is the Bella Rose, and I've used some of the leaves from the foliage set. Now the little fancy work in there is created from the filigree corners, and the frame itself is created from Labels 18. So to create the card, from the A set Matting Basics, I've cut 2 pieces from the largest die and I've hinged them together for my base. Then from the largest die from the B set, I've cut 2 of the peachy pink layers. Now from the second largest die in the A set, I've cut 2 of the white mats, and one is being layered onto the peach mat, and the other one I'm going to use to create this aperture in the card. Now from the second largest die in the Matting Basics A, if I cut myself 2 of these white mats. One's been added to the peach card, the other one is going to go on the front of the card. So I've laid them out so that this cuts my card and this will cut the aperture in the card. And once that's been run through the die cutting machine, this is what you will have, and it's been embossed. Keep this piece safe, you'll need it later. Now we're also going to use the same die again that created this aperture, and we're going to use the next one in the Labels 18, which happens to be the largest die, and we're going to cut that out so that we create this frame. Now I'm going to create this part to the card here, but I need to make sure that everything fits in place. So I've stamped and embossed the verse that I need. From any corner die that you have, cut yourself corners, and I've cut 1 of each of mine. That one is going to be used later. This one is going to position with the verse, but I need to make sure that they're all correctly positioned. So I'm going to pop my aperture part on top of my mat, but I'm not gluing anything down yet. Now underneath that aperture, I need to make sure that that verse is in the correct position. So I'm just going to make sure that that is all straight before I glue anything in place. And the filigree corner is going to sit inside the aperture, so that's going to sit along there. Now once I'm happy with that in the position that I want it, I can just make a mark along here, because that's where I'm going to trim the card, and I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together. Now once you've got that all lined up and this is glued in place, you can trim off the top part, and then the verse has been trimmed down so that it doesn't show outside of the aperture. Now for this is going to be added with some foam tape, so I'm just going to add the tape around the card, and I'm making sure that there are bits around the aperture just to stop that from collapsing. I've also added some little bits onto the lacy part, which again will stop it from collapsing. So I'm just going to make sure that that's all in place, and we'll just add some little bits down the side just to keep that raised, and that now is going to be added to the front of that card, and you can see the foam tape keeps it raised off the base. So once this is all glued in place, I've added some foam pads around the edge of my frame, and that's now ready to sit along there. And then once that's in place, that will go inside my card, that's the lining, and this will sit on the top of my card, and I'm now ready to go to the next stage. So for the next part of the card, I have cut myself all the shapes from the Aster flower topper. From the bell rose, I've used the big die and I've cut myself one of the swirl shapes, and from the foliage sets I've used two of the dies and I've cut leaves in different colours because I'm not quite sure which colour I wish to use on my card just yet. Now once you've cut the flower, there are several different ways you can use it. You can use it as it is, but I'm going to take off these frilly edges, so I'm just going to bend these forward, and then with some scissors I'm just going to snip in there and snip that edge off. And then once I've done that, I'm going to ink the edges, and I want a nice peachy colour to my flower, so I'm using Tattered Rose, and I'm just going to ink the edges to my flower, and I'm going to do that on all the pieces to this flower. So I'm going to do that to all of them, and I'm also going to ink the middle part to the flower. Now once I've inked the edges, I'm just going to use a bone folder just to curl some shape into these petals, and then on an old mouse mat I'm just going to run a ball tool around the middle, and then I'm going to layer them up so that the petals are offset. I'm going to do that with all the different layers, and then once I get to the end piece, I'm going to pop that in the middle along there, and in the middle of that I'm going to add in a pearl. So once it's all glued, I'm just going to add in a little bit of glitter and pop it on one side while I just deal with the rest of the card. So I'm just dotting my glue around the petal edges, and then I'm just going to chuck it into my glitter box and tap off the excess, and there it is, ready for my card. Now I've just added some shape to my petals, and these are the ones that I'm going to use, and I'm going to sit this large swirl along there, but this bit gets in the way, so I'm just going to trim that part off. I don't need that part, and that's going to sit along there. My leaves will come on the top, my flower will go along there, and I'm just going to push in some of these little twigs as well, and I think the white ones look pretty. Let's have a look what the green ones look like. So this is, as I say, this is just a dry run, just to see what I like and wear, and then I shall go away and glue that in place. Now I'm going to add the finishing touches to the front of the card, and in my stash I've found some nice peach ribbon with a picot edge, and I've created a little bow, and that's going to sit along there. So I shall just add that in place, and I'm using a hot glue gun which burns if you get it on your fingers, and that's going to sit in there. Now on that knot I'm going to cover it with a pearl. Now on the lacy part at the top I'm also going to add in some little pearls. These are just tiny ones, and that will just enhance that little bit more, a bit more. And then I think along each edge of the swirly part we'll add in a tiny pearl. So I've added some pearls into the corner, but the final touch for this card is just to add a little bit extra to the inside. Now if you remember, we cut and saved an extra piece of the corner, so I'm adding this to a piece of the peach card. I'm just going to glue that in place, And then once I've glued that in place, I'm going to trim it along the outside edge. So just add that in there and stick it all down. And then I'm going to trim it along here, and then I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. Now once you've done that, you're going to glue along the two straight edges just on the edge, and then that's going to be added to the inside of your card along there. And then if you remember, we had a piece left over from creating this aperture, and that's just going to slot in there, and that then is for your recipient to add their inscription or their signature to the card. So there you have the finished card, one in peach, one in pink. I hope you like them, and I hope you like the little touch with the inside of the card.